Good.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our voluntary initiative webinar, What's Going On in My Farmyard, Top Tips for Filling, Mixing and Maintenance. So my name's Phil Jarvis and I'm chairman of the voluntary initiative. I've got with me Neil Evans as well, who'll be hopefully dealing with the logistics in the background. I have four speakers. We have Iain Robertson, who's live out in the field. Morning, Iain. I'm going to let them introduce their exact job title. We've also got Harry Fordham, who's going to talk about closed transfer systems. Morning, Harry. And Iain Forman, who's going to talk about spray testing. And finally, we've got Nigel Simpson, who's going to talk about catchment considerations and things in the wider area. So I think without further ado, Neil, we'll pull up Iain Robertson's presentation. You can ask questions in the chat room, and also we'll be having a Q&A at the end of the four presentations, which hopefully should last just a little bit over half an hour, and then we'll take it from there. So Iain, if I hand over to you, and Neil, if you could share Iain's presentation.
Yep. Oh gosh.
Technology. Morning, Iain. I see. Are you out in the field in your sprayer this morning?
No, I'm not actively out in the sprayer at the moment. I'm out. Going to start doing some cultivating, ready for the current year's cropping. So yeah, I am out, sat in the tractor cab as we speak. So yeah.
So Iain, you're on, and up comes your CV by the looks of things.
Yeah. No, just a little bit about me. So I've been spraying since a long time ago now, when dinosaurs were still around. Been spraying full time for a fair time now, contracting, wide range of spraying operations. I was nicely invited to be part of the Neroso board, and I'm also Basics and Facts qualified. So next slide, please, Neil. The main thing about application is there's so many different ways of doing it, but the basic principles are still the same. You have a tank, you have a pump, and you have a boom / a nozzle. So as you can see, there's quite a different variation between the cutting edge and the basics. And I'm sure most farmers still actually do use a knapsack. The sprayer operator, we're very varied in the tasks we do. If you keep clicking through, we're agronomists, chemists, weather people, we've got to fix it, and also my favourite slide, we are the best drivers in the world. I would challenge Lewis Hamilton, etc., to drive as accurately and as well as we do every day. The main thing for me is the 6 Ps, is the proper planning prevents poor performance, and just thinking ahead as to what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, can help make the best job of what you're trying to achieve. And the next part of that is KISS, which is just keep it simple, stupid. Stole this from the army. It is pretty much what it says on the tin. The simpler things are, the less chance there is of it going wrong. So by planning what you're doing and working it all out, it just makes everything so much simpler and easier for all concerned. Timing has the biggest influence on what you're trying to do as a sprayer operator. So again, planning for everything so that when the weather is right, you can go and do the best job you possibly can. So this is a slide that I borrowed from Tom Allen Stevens from Crop Protection Magazine. And as you can see, the weather has the biggest influence about what we do, and it's the one thing we've got no control of. So that means it's even more important to control the other aspects that we can control. So by planning everything ahead, that means that wasted downtime, washing out, etc., is planned to the best of our ability. Next one, please, Neil. So this one's stolen from Tom Robinson and James Thomas from Syngenta. Product has 50% of the performance. Timing, you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't put it on at the right time, then it's not going to work. then breaking down to the sprayer setup and then the fine tuning of your nozzle selection. There is no one thing that's going to make a massive difference, but all of these things combined together can have a big effect on the application and getting the best from the products and using them safely and efficiently. Next one. So as you can see, I've almost got OCD with laying the cans out in an order of how I want to put them into the chemical, into the tank. So this is a 345 litre tank mix. And by talking to your agronomist, you can plan what pack sizes you're going to use. So by using the 10 or 20 litre cans, you can actually reduce your filling time to speed the operation up and make it safer and easier. So if you're opening less cans, that means there's less chance of point source contamination and everything like that. Also, I'm glad to see a lot of the manufacturers now moving towards foilless cans. Again, another source of point source contamination, which is being eliminated as we're moving forward. So it's all about planning, working out, setting it out and having it done in a correct mix order to do the best job we possibly can. Next one, please, Neil. So planning how you lay out your sprayer store. You can see here, this is on a Bateman in a store. It's a bunded store. However, when you're filling the sprayer, you don't know it because it's possibly going to foam or overfill. So by having a 200 litre drum cut in a third to act under the fill point, it's too late when it overflows, and so you have to clean it up and react to it. Where if you just put a bund underneath, a can underneath it to catch any spills, you've already contained what could possibly be a situation. So it's trying to plan ahead to save time and work later on in here. So again, working with the agronomist to select the correct can sizes, no foils, and easy to pour rinse solutions. We've all had those products that stick like anything to a can, which is a job to get out. And we also know the nicer formulations that come out the cans easier. It might be pence per litre to the farmer or the agronomist, and it's all about cost, but actually what does that cost you when you're trying to fill the sprayer? Next one, please, Neil. And I'm very lucky to have been trying all the different closed transfer systems over the past couple of years. And I would say it's a pleasure to see all of the sprayer manufacturers working together, the chemical manufacturers working together to come up with a solution to make what is a safer system for the operator, the environment, and all concerned. It's really moved forward a pace. It's really exciting. I've seen quite a few of the latest innovations and stuff, and I'm really excited about moving forward. And again, wearing the PPE all the time as we do when filling, this is the next. It's not a revolution, it's an evolution of what we're doing already, but it's just the figures of operator exposure are immense by using this system. So I'm really excited. For me, the take-home message is it does stop with the sprayer operator. You're the person pouring it in the sprayer. A good one will make it work. Well, we don't even want to think about what a bad one will do. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Keep it simple. And yeah, it's hard work, but I do love my job. Have a good day. Thank you.
Iain, thank you very much indeed, and thank you very much for keeping that as succinct as it is. We're going to come back with some questions later on, but thanks very much for kicking our webinar off. You mentioned there at the end closed transfer systems, and Harry Fordham is our next speaker. Harry, do you want to introduce yourself? I know that you're very active in the sprays and sprayers at cereals, but do you want to say a few words about yourself and then present your presentation?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Iain. As if it was all planned, Iain sort of led me into closed transfer. My name's Harry Fordham, everyone. I work for Syngenta in the UK, Benelux and Nordic regions. My role is New Farming Technologies Lead, which is very active in the application space. So nozzle technology, sprayer technology and digital agriculture. But my place in this webinar is to talk about Easyconnect and closed transfer and the closed transfer system that Syngenta have been involved with, along with a lot of our colleagues in the application in the chemical industry. Just making sure you can all see that. Yeah, all good. Just as I thought I've been given 5-10 minutes to give Easyconnect in a nutshell. What is Easyconnect? Who is involved? How does it work? What are the benefits? And why are we looking into it? Cool. My computer is on a go slow this morning. As I say, what is it? How does it work? What are the benefits? And what do users think? Iain alluded to it earlier. Iain is one of our pilot users and is testing it for us. But we have, in the UK, we have 20 pilot users. And across Europe, we probably have about 100 in total. So we've got farmers using it in many different situations, in different cropping, different locations, different sprayers, all giving us feedback on how to make it work. So an introduction to Easyconnect. What is it? Who's involved? So at the moment, it's supported by Adama, BASF, Belchim, Corteva, Certis, FMC, New Farm, Ravenza, and Syngenta. It's an open group. We are inviting as many people to come along as possible. The more members of the Easyconnect task force, the better. And I'm not allowed to say if anyone else has joined yet, but there is a press release coming out at 9 o'clock this morning, UK time, which hopefully will allow us to be excited about a new member as well, which hopefully will make a lot of you a lot more interested in the system. There's a couple of technology, which you can see on the right-hand side there, the black thing at the bottom. That has been developed in conjunction with Hypro Pentair. And this is a coupler that makes the whole system all integrated into one. So there's no chance of, or very little chance of any spillage. The cap has been designed in conjunction with all the sprayer manufacturers and their cap manufacturers as well. And I'll come on a little bit onto that later on. It's easy to use and operated. There are only 3 handles or moving parts on the whole thing. It's very quick to empty, and I'm sure hopefully Iain would back me up on this, but he's given us feedback that it's actually quicker than normal filling of a sprayer when emptying cans into an induction hopper. The rinsing is integrated into the system. All the packs will be resealable and leak-proof, and also compatible with local standard recycling schemes. As we all know, plastic is becoming a bit of a dirty word. And if we can reduce the amount of plastic we use or make it easier to recycle, that can only be a good thing. So in essence, what is Easyconnect? Easyconnect is a cap that has been developed by the task force across Europe. And it is made up of, it's of an ISO standard, so it's an international standard cap, and it's known as ISO 63. The reason for that is the cap is 63 millimeters wide, and it has 3 constituent parts. So if I get my laser pointer out, you can see on my screen here, that top right, we have the dust cover with the Easyconnect branding on it. The grower or operator will remove that before using it on the sprayer. We have the main threaded cap here in the middle, and within the main threaded cap, there is an inner cap. The benefit of the Easyconnect system is that if you as an operator or grower don't have the Easyconnect coupler on your sprayer or in your fill area at the time, for the time being, what happens is this is still a threaded cap that can be used normally. But if you do have the coupler and the system to use Easyconnect, the cap and the can will go upside down onto the coupler as demonstrated here. And I'll just show a video in a moment. It'll be locked in place. The inner cap gets removed by the coupler. The chemical is then sucked out into the sprayer without sucking in of the can, so the air is replaced. It is then rinsed thoroughly, both the main can and then the inner orifice of the inner surface of the cap as well. And then we have a thoroughly rinsed and cleaned can that is no longer contaminated. This is how it will be plumbed in, and very similar to the induction hopper, we can have them plumbed in alongside the induction hopper, or we can have them plumbed in separately, but we've been in consultation with both sprayer manufacturers and sprayer operators to have them plumbed in together and what the feedback would be. So it's not been that complicated. And when we've asked sprayer manufacturers to have a look at this, they've been very open and very keen to do it and make sure it's done correctly. Thought I'd just share a quick video to just show you what it actually looks like in real life. And this is a sprayer operator in Germany, but it's quite a good video to illustrate how the system works. So I'll just move, but you can see the operator removes the dust cover, turns the can upside down onto the coupler, and you can see all the manufacturer's different cans there, and the speed at which it empties is rapid, quick, very little to no foaming whatsoever. The operator then rinses the inside of the can, and you can see a very powerful jet cleaning all the nooks and crannies, can spin on the cap. Inner cap gets resealed back in place, turn the handle back round to the 8 o'clock position, now rinsing the inner cap, and you can see spinning it on position. It then unlocks using the handle, and you can see no leaks and able to do any draining that may or may not be required. It is then able to be chucked in the recycling centre. So a very quick, simple, easy process. I'm sure you'll agree, and something that we've taken a lot of pride in as the Easyconnect task force within the UK to be used by the operator easily, quickly, and safely. So the key elements are that we believe it's faster. The cap has no foil seal. All of the components are completely integrated into the can. The cap will be consistent across all the manufacturers involved in the system. And pilot users that we've questioned and done tests with have said it's up to 20 to 30% quicker than standard filling, which is a benefit for everyone. It's easier. There's no need to be worried about measuring jugs. We can do partial dosing. Rinsing and cleaning is completely integrated into the system. There is no adapter needed because all the manufacturers will use the same cap and integrated can, integrated cap into the can, sorry. It'll be safer because it's completely enclosed, integrated emptying and cleaning. There's no need to be pouring in the yard, and no need to remove caps in order to pour. And as I said before, no foils on the cans at all, which I think we can all agree is good for speed, ease of use, and for the environment. As we know, foils can be one of the main exponents of point source contamination. So we are extremely happy and confident with the Easyconnect system. And actually, so are the pilot users that have used it. We've done surveys across Europe, and all of our pilot users would recommend the Easyconnect system to a friend or colleague. And these are a few comments that have come out from the pilot users, again, across Europe. And you can see all of them are nice and positive. The future of operator safety, clean and easy to use, easier, quicker, safer for operators in the environment, lower operator exposure. It'll save contact with chemical. It's quick and efficient with very thorough rinsing. The CTS system needs to happen now, and we need all chemical packaging to a standard. So you can see we're getting there. I think one of the biggest positives of the Easyconnect system is actually there are 10 or 12 chemical companies all talking together, all working together as a team to ensure that the ease of use of our chemistry and packaging is maximised for operators and farm managers alike. So I hopefully that is it in a nutshell. I've gone through it quite quickly, I appreciate, but any more information will be coming out quickly and rapidly across the industry to help explain how this will work on farm.
Thank you very much indeed, Harry. And yeah, we'll get some questions when we've heard the final two presentations. So if you have got questions on either what Iain's spoken about or what Harry's spoken about, please do pop them in the Q&A, and then we'll get to them at the conclusion of the presentations. I'm going to turn to Iain Forman now. Iain, sprayer testing, your area of expertise. Would you like to share your screen and give us your presentation, please?
You see that okay?
Yeah.
Lovely. Right, thanks very much, Phil. Good morning, everyone. Iain Forman, the National Sprayer Testing Scheme Manager. So we're here, we provide all pesticide application equipment testing in the UK, and some of you may already be aware that we provide fertiliser spreader testing as well. So I'm going to get straight into my presentation, as we are a little bit short or tight on time about preparing your sprayer for its annual test. We know that about 80% of operators attend their test while the machine is being tested. So this is a great opportunity for all operators to have a chat with the machine examiner, find out any more information about the test items that he's going through on your machine. We always encourage everybody to do any repairs that you're aware of beforehand, because remember, it is a test, it's not a service on your sprayer as well. The operator check sheet, this has been around for many years now and updated over the years as well. So a good range of items for all operators to go through, maybe throughout the season, but a good idea to use it prior to the NSTS test as well. But also in the bottom right hand corner, you've got somewhere that you can record a calibration, and we know that for red tractor purposes you have to do a calibration at least once a year. But don't forget, your NSTS test includes a nozzle output check, a forward speed check, and we also check the nozzle spacings to give you all of the information required so that you can complete a calibration on your sprayer. One item on that check sheet that I do want to highlight, and this was also included in the Naroso annual training course this year, about checking for leaks over and above normal working pressure. This is something that we always encourage operators to include in their regular checks on the sprayer. Because if we look at the 10 most common faults on a sprayer, the ones highlighted in red, 5 of them are all attributed to leaks and drips on the machine. And 2 of those, where it says free from leaks spraying, and towards the bottom, free from leaks not spraying, these are the 2 checks that are carried out over and above normal working pressure, so contribute to these high number of leaks and drips on the test of the machine. Lastly, the test item, or highlighted in blue, hose condition, although not seen to be leaking at this stage, may result in a leak in due course if not attended to in time. To look into some of these faults in a little bit more detail, so you'll have seen from the previous slide, Dcv leaks are by far the most common faults that we see on a sprayer that has to be repaired. I'm sure many, if not all, operators carry spare DCVs or spare chem savers with them. It's a very quick, very easy repair to do, and should be done as soon as this starts to occur in the field. As with any leaks, they want to be repaired when they do occur. One thing you don't want is any crop damage in the field, but also when you fold up and go down the road, the last thing we want to see in view of the general public is a sprayer leaking on the public highway. Just making sure that nozzles are clean and not damaged, but also checking for other leaks. But the main reason I put these 2 pictures in is to say it's important that you do have a walk around the sprayer when the machine is running, to check for leaks right at the back of the sprayer, which is an area obviously that isn't visible from the operator's seat. You might be surprised to know that both of these photos were taken when the machine was brought in for test. And this is certainly something that we don't want to expose NSTS examiners to at the time of the test, but certainly as an operator, these filters haven't been checked for quite some time. And so we can't always assume that routine maintenance is being carried out. A couple of slides on pipes or hoses themselves. You can see the two pictures on the left-hand side where the hoses are slightly collapsed when the machine is not spraying, but to the right, when the machine is under pressure, they expand to their normal diameter. But over time, the regular turning on and off of the boom is going to keep flexing and closing the hose. So ultimately, this pipe is going to deteriorate, it's going to delaminate. Maybe not such a big problem on this here, the pressure side, but certainly on the suction side will soon cause some issues in the field. And as Iain mentioned earlier, with 1.5% of downtime relating to sprayer breakdowns, if any items on the machine can be dealt with in the yard, is going to be much safer, but reduce or increase your spraying time. The picture on the right, where an NSTS examiner will find where he can see the braiding, or if he can see the wire structure to a hose, this will be a fail on your machine, and that pipe will have to be replaced before the machine would pass the test. But on the left, you can see where the short piece of pipe is in the center of the picture. It's starting to kink, but it's okay at the moment. It may be something the operator can attend to now, of maybe rerouting that pipe or supporting it or tying it up somewhere, that it doesn't become a fault a little bit later on in the season. So just to sum up, I think probably the most important component on a sprayer is the operator, and whatever he or she does influences everything going on with that machine. So to reiterate, the importance of regular checks during the season, the preparation of that machine for an NSTS test and the NSTS test itself will help to ensure a good and trouble-free season operating the machine out in the field. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you very much indeed, Iain, and we'll come to some questions in a minute, but thank you very much. And reinforcing Iain Robertson's point about the spray operator as well, they're coming through loud and clear about the importance of people who are driving the machinery. So that's great. Thank you very much, Iain. If you could stop sharing so that Neil, if you can bring up Nigel's presentation. We're going to we've been concentrating on practical things in the yard and filling sprayers and testing sprayers, but we're going to take a bit of a wider approach now. Nigel Simpson joins us, and I've called it Catchment Considerations, Nigel. So would you like to, whilst Neil's putting up your presentation, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to talk about? Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Right, I'm Nigel Simpson. I'm one of the leads in the Catchment Sensitive Farming for agriculture. We hopefully will be working as part of Natural England for a good few years. DEFRA has just increased our funding and asked us to do more. My phone number is there on the screen for you if you would like to contact me afterwards. But certainly it would be good to work with you. In the Catchment Sensitive Farming, works with DEFRA and the Environment Agency. We get our data and our evidence of where problems are from the Environment Agency. We don't work as regulators. Everything we do is voluntary. And we work with farmers and agronomists and other partners across England in what we call priority areas to improve not only the quality of our water, but also our air. Everyone farms in a catchment, and in many cases, areas are important for groundwater as well as surface water, particularly for drinking. But if there's any contamination of groundwater, it is for geological time, and that would knock out use of a borehole for drinking if we had it polluted. So it's very important that we do minimize our pollution risks and losses so that we don't actually cause any problems. Sorry, Neil, could you go back to the previous slide, please? Yeah, thank you. These target areas that we work at the moment, this one is one that shows you where people are eligible for both our help currently in the red areas and in terms of our advice, and eligible for grants which are specific to what we call high risk activities. But that's not necessarily where we would necessarily have pesticide issues as we speak. So if I can have the next slide, please, Neil. Right, so you'll see that the areas have changed slightly in this particular slide to reflect the fact that pesticides at the moment are something regarded as an issue, as in current problem, in a more limited area than where we would work normally. So just to make that comparison, this is available to you if you use the magic.gov website and you switch on the countryside stewardship targeting and scoring layers, as you can see on the left-hand side, and then tick the relevant boxes on the left-hand side. Okay, next slide, please, Neil. Right, pollution of water from pesticides can occur not only in storage, and there's a leaflet called AIS 16, which you can download from the HSE website, sprayers and filling, which we'll talk about today, overspraying of watercourses, drift, which we therefore have layer wraps and buffer strips to try and minimize, drain flow, which can be linked to crack flow, and that can cause inadvertent losses. Then there's surface runoff, not only from tracks and hard surfaces like public highways and yards, but also where slopes exist. Cleaning, as in the yard again, which we'll talk about today, and disposal, particularly important in relation to groundwater, because we have lost groundwater sources over the years, sometimes through dumps and or poor disposal. If I can have the next slide, please. Right, well, between 20 to 70% of pesticide losses are believed to occur in the yard, now with an average of 40%. So it's a considerable area for risk in terms of causing contamination. And you can see on that slide there, that sort of clinker yard has got obviously the potential not only for ponding, but also runoff across the yard. And although that particular ATV is not connected to a pelleter, pelleters as well as sprayers can also be a problem for us when we're putting on slug pellets. So that's another reason for thinking about this topic today. Okay, if you can turn to the next slide, please, Neil. Right, you notice those fertilizer tanks, those liquid tanks are not bunded. And obviously sprayers are often used to fill with fertilizers as well as sprays. And therefore there's a risk there potentially of fertilizers getting into water as well. So there's another risk that we need to mitigate. Right, the next slide, please. Right, with regard to what we can do, there is a thing called a biobed, which is a mix of equal volumes of soil, straw, and compost, which will over time degrade pesticides. So these are sort of shallow pit filled with the same. They go down to 1 meter in depth. In the middle of that one, on the left-hand side at the top, you can see the sump, and that will then connect to a trickle irrigation pipe that then goes across the site, which is then grassed over, so that the pesticides which have come from a filling area can go then through that biobed, and hopefully we will get what's called a leachate, which then can be disposed of in a sort of non-crop area. You can have the offset type, which is where it's offset from the sprayer filling area, or a drive over type, which is much less common because it requires quite a lot of expense on steel, but that would achieve the same issue. There are grants available, as you can see on the right-hand side, that vary in the amounts available, but you have a line biobed plus a biobed, filling area, then it comes out at £118 per metre squared in relation to the grants available. And if you've got an existing washdown area which is already adequate, then we can add and bolt on a line biobed to go alongside it. Okay, could you go to the next slide, please? A biofilter is an alternative to the sort of outside biobed, where this can go either outside the shed, and these are boxes stacked like IBCs, which will give you the same effect. Those boxes will be filled with that mix that I described earlier, and they will be trickled down through the boxes, and that will then give you very good quality water at the end of it, albeit maybe contaminated with sediment and organic matter. So I wouldn't necessarily put it back in the sprayer, but it does go to a disposal area quite easily. That £9.90 per unit is for the entire stack, by the way. Sorry, the next slide, and that's the grant available. Basically, there's roughly 50% funding for many of our things. This one works out slightly differently. In relation to sprayer filling areas, we can also roof over a sprayer filling area, providing you get planning permission. I should have mentioned that for a biobed, you also need to apply for what's called a T32 waste exemption permit. But by the same token, we can then look at doing things to best practice. The sprayer washdown area, if that's all you needed, would be just £40 per metre squared in terms of grant available, but that will then protect you from inadvertent runoff and contamination of water, so it's a contained area. And then you would potentially need groundwater authorization or similar to dispose of pesticides in that situation with that biobed. We also can link to rainwater harvesting, and that can improve the quality of the water that you're being able to use. And that will then have various grant rates. We won't concentrate on them now, but that's just to make the point that this is part of an integrated setup, and you can then link it all together, both for the benefit of climate change and better quality of spray water. Okay, and the next one, please. We don't only work in the yard, we also work in the field. And obviously with LERAPs and other considerations, we want to protect watercourses. And so on that basis, we do offer various grants for various widths of buffer strips. And those are two of the examples given there. There are other ways and means by which we can reduce runoff and try and improve water quality as well. So we would discuss with you on an individual basis what you needed. And then finally, just to talk about the fact that we do one-to-one advice. So a catchment officer will come and visit the site with you, discuss what you might need, how it might fit, best location, and all the other things that you would need to do. We can also offer you specialist engineers who come out, and that report on the right is an example of one of the types of visit that we offer. And those are all free of charge to you. So on that basis, providing you in the right location, we can help you with that effect. But the same sort of advice can be obtained when you start to look at the VI website, which is the next slide, thank you. And on that website, you will be able to download things like the biobed manual, and also these various videos on rainwater harvesting and building a biobed, not to mention the other leaflets, and we're updating some of those as we speak. And then, as Iain said earlier, proper planning does prevent poor performance, and so hopefully we can work with you to plan better and work with you. So if you want to find out who your catchment officer is locally, then you go onto the .gov website, type in CSFO in the search box, and you should find the local CSFO's contact details. Many thanks. Is there any questions, please?
Thank you very much indeed, Nigel. And if I could ask our presenters to turn their cameras on, please, that'd be great. I just wanted to reiterate a point about the information that Nigel was talking about on the VI website. And it's basically, you can find lots of this information under the water tab and the resources tab on the VI website. We're also hoping for a revamp of the website in the next few months, so watch this space. So we're going to have an upgrade, like you might be having an upgrade to your sprayer or your handling system. So I'm looking forward to that. One of the other VI aims is to promote best practice when we're using plant protection products. And you'll have heard this word combining an IPM approach, so that's reducing its impact on soil, water and wildlife. Iain Robertson, I'm going to turn to you a little bit here on the fact that within that IPM approach, things like drift and nozzles and water protection are really key components of that. And I presume that not only is it things that you can do in the farmyard, but things you can do out in the field as well that can reduce those impacts?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is all IPM integrated approach. So, I mean, I haven't used a flat fan nozzle for 16 to 18 years now because of the evolution of the technologies in application by using, for example, the angled spray with a 3D defy or the air induction nozzles. They're so fine, the droplet is so fine that, but its nature, you don't get the drift associated with it, so you still get the good efficacy, but you don't have the negative of the drift, so you actually get more of the active ingredient going where you need it. So that's been a massive thing for me. And also the evolution with the technologies on sprayers, the boom heights. I mean, keeping it simple, one of the best things I picked up from Farm Spray Operator was Mark Gardner just putting a 50 centimetre cable tie on the end of the boom to give you a visual reference for running your boom height above the crop to keep that drift down. I think it's by increasing your boom height from 50 centimetres to a metre, I think it's a 10 times increase in drift. So just these simple things of keeping the basics right can have such a big effect on the bigger picture.
You mentioned technology there. What about things like weather forecasting? Because obviously, there's a lot of pressure and the number of spray days are available. I mean, how do you decide on, and do you use, apps, or do you use weather forecasting services, and who's the best?
Yeah, no pressure. I think it's a really difficult one. And I think the best forecaster I've seen is literally look out the window and see what's happening. Because at the moment, I don't know a weather forecast that is getting it right at all. As I'm sure you've seen, there's so many combines at the moment with pictures of rain falling onto the windscreens and side windows of them. It's a constant battle. But then again, look, I always remember it. I went spraying in the rain one day and someone said, "Well, what are you doing?" And actually the job I was doing of applying a pre-emergent spray, actually doing that in a light drizzle actually was a better effect than doing it on a calm, still day. So understanding what the target is and what you're trying to achieve is key to getting the best out of the job. So yeah, it's the weather forecasts. Yeah, I just look at a range of them and then come up with a local knowledge and then come up with an overview between an amalgamation between all the forecasts to come up with what I think is going to be the best plan. Okay,
thanks very much indeed, Iain. Harry, turning to you, and you've probably seen in the chat room, there's a number of questions here. So I wonder whether we might do these as a quick fire few before I turn to some other questions there. The first question, with Easyconnect, potential for accidents or spillages?
The potential's there for anything, isn't it? And that's what we're trying to mitigate against. I think there are potential for accidents, but I think the risk of accidents is massively reduced because there is no removing of caps. I mean, my background is farm management, and I used to drive sprayers regularly, not quite as much as Iain, but relatively regularly. And we've all been filling a sprayer and nearly knocked over a can with a lid off or something like that. But because there's no lids off, that risk of accident is massively mitigated.
I would presume as well, Harry, that you're still talking about wearing face shield and gloves when you're so. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not going to be a replacement for PPE at all. As we know, PPE is the last of the E stock. But because of that, we still, because of the risk of accidents, we would still have PPE. But when we've used them, and I think Iain, maybe you could pass comment, Iain Robertson, when you've used it, it's much safer and easier and less likely to have any incidents. Is probably a safer way to put it.
Yeah, so there's a general nod of acknowledgement there from Iain. Yeah. Okay, so Harry, just another question here about, can you see Easyconnect or closed transfer systems being mandatory in the future? I actually, when I read this question, I think of back in the day when there was just a lance that went into a can, and now we have hoppers on sprayers as almost they come with it, and also pressure washers now. So where do you see that evolvement of closed transfer systems?
So to put into context, in the Netherlands, it's going to be a legal obligation in 2024 that all plant protection products come with a closed transfer cap on it. That doesn't necessarily mean farmers will have to use the closed transfer, but that is the next logical step. For the UK, at the moment, there isn't any signalling that it will be compulsory. However, bearing in mind the Pesticide National Action Plan is being written currently, so those things may change in the near future. The way I see this being integrated for operators and users of spray machinery is it'll be similar, like you say, Phil, to the induction hopper. That was a new invention at one point or another. And what will happen is, I think the coupler will be integrated into spray manufacturers. We've already seen John Deere, for example, are selling it as an optional extra on their machines. And I think the conversations that our colleagues across Europe are having with European manufacturers and our UK colleagues are having with UK manufacturers is it will be integrated into the machine, and it will just be in the future part and parcel of what we're used to doing.
So what about general availability and the sort of cost it might be now? Is it generally available?
So currently it's not on general sale. The coupler isn't, no. Hypro, Pentair are just ramping up their manufacturing provision. We're aiming to release the closed transfer Easyconnect caps into the UK market in 2023. As a task force. That's not just Syngenta, that's everyone involved. And like I say, the benefit of the caps are, if you don't have the Easyconnect coupler, you can still use them conventionally. They are just a threaded cap. Hypro are ramping up manufacture as we speak, and with a view for it to be more available commercially, probably from next year onwards. So it's
and typical cost.
And the cost, they haven't put a figure on it just yet, but we're looking in the range of about £1,000 to £1,500.
Okay.
For a coupler.
Yeah. Which, if you think about the safety issues and the environmental issues, and actually the amount of product we're putting on through the sprayer, that could be quite a sound investment. Just a couple of other practicalities, Harry, around the process about part can measurement process. And can it deal with all liquid formulations? Yes.
So partial, what we've dubbed partial dosing, and this is it's a very delicate balance, because one of the key requisites for the system was for it to be fast and easy to use. And as we know, the parts where we're measuring out jugs is slow and difficult to do. And trying to do that all integrated has proved to be a bit of a challenge. But we've worked very closely with Hypro Pentair, and there's a couple of things that we can do. If we're talking solid litres worth of partial dosing on a 10-litre can, there is the sight gauge on the side of the can. However, Hypro Pentair are working to integrate a measuring system into the coupler, which means we will be able to measure at less than 100 milliliter accuracy and be able to slowly measure out partial bits of chemical into what is essentially a measuring tube on the side of the coupler that is rinsable, cleanable, but doesn't affect the speed of full can evacuation. And then secondly, are all liquid formulations compatible? as far as I know, yes. We when we test it, it's tested with what is known as an ISO standard formulation, which is essentially wallpaper paste, which we have to use in the can. And that is, I mean, that would put some of your more snotty formulations that we have in sort of, and pale them into insignificance. But we've not had any issues. I mean, Iain, I'm leaning on you a bit here, Iain Robertson. Do you want to mention anything about any formulation issues you've had? You've not mentioned to me if you have.
No, I mean, I've found it really good and easy to use, quick, safe. Even the Glupia products that we used to have that have now been withdrawn, they used to wash out and come out the can easy. The fact that the rinsing probe goes up into the can and rinses halfway up the can is a massive bonus. Well, I have tested it to the extreme, and I did block it up once I spoke to Richard Garnett from Wisdom and asked him, can I try this through it? And nobody knew the answer. So I tried it and blocked it up royally. But we know that now we can't put WDG through the closed transfer system. But until you try these things, nobody knew the answer until we tried it. And that's the whole point of these evaluations, is trying it and see what we can actually work out.
Thanks very much indeed, guys. And Harry, anybody who's driven and filled a sprayer up over the last 20 years will be very familiar with snotty formulations that can cause problems in induction hoppers and spray lines, or if they've been left in the tank because of weather. So yes, no, thank you very much. And thanks, Iain, as well. If I just turn to Iain Forman now. Iain, you talked about the sprayer testing and the checklist. And really, I suppose my question is around maintenance of sprayers, and actually some of these things are probably visible from the sprayer operator and can be repaired beforehand. You know, this isn't just the environmental impact of not having sprayers, but the cost of these sprays, that if they're not put on accurately, there's a lot of sprayer operators can do anyway, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and that's one thing that we're always trying to encourage operators to do. If we go back to one of my slides, which showed the percentage of sprayers that don't have any faults on them when they come in for tests, which is just over 50%. So almost 50% of sprayers do have faults on them that have to be rectified before that machine will pass the test. But, you know, as we all know, regular maintenance throughout the season is important. You want to keep that machine going, and there are always wet days that a little bit of maintenance, even an hour walking around that machine, is very well worth time spent and reducing on any breakdown that the operator might experience in the field.
Yeah, that's great. One of the other things that when we were, the VI was talking or responding to the National Action Plan was about perhaps help for smaller sprayers as regards either support from government in a scheme. You know, I'm thinking about sprayers that are maybe under 800 litres and smaller than 12 metre boom sections, which might be used on grassland or small areas that probably don't get used every week. Is there something more that we could do to encourage more sprayers into the spray testing arena, do you think?
Yeah, one of the difficulties there is, and certainly for livestock farms who work to the legal requirements of not having to have an annual test, that only relates to crop assurance schemes. But we do stress that the NSTS test is really an annual test, and this should apply to all sprayers, I believe, and that's regardless of whether they're brand new or sprayers in use. And we've certainly, as the AEA stroke NSTS, have responded to the National Action Plan as well, of trying to bring all sprayers in line of more regular testing. But I think it is one of the important things is bringing all new sprayers into line with sprayer testing. You may not be aware that a new sprayer doesn't require testing until it's 5 years old. Now with crop assurance, that has to be tested from new, but all of those other machines, and we do see certain manufacturers, and in particular some imported machines, that really aren't up to the standard, and we don't pick up these problems until they are 5 years old, and that certainly is on the smaller machine market that you're talking about, Phil.
Yeah, well, we're certainly trying to talk to DEFRA in some of perhaps the sustainable farming incentive or capital or infrastructure grants that come, that they might support some of the smaller spray operators as an option to maybe partially subsidise some of the tests. So let's watch this space and see if we get any traction. I'm going to move to Nigel now. Thanks, Iain. I'm going to move to Nigel now. Nigel, there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you. Firstly was, do you think that we've got the right platform or a consistent platform for us to know where to go for all these grants? I mean, I think there's a bit of confusion about whether it's open to all or whether it's certain catchments. If you were to say, where's the best place to look, where would you look for the grants?
Well, on the .gov website is the short answer. So
Right.
It's all at the moment under the Countryside Stewardship Scheme in relation to those that come from DEFRA and our local Treasury or UK Treasury. In regard to England, as regards the water companies, they do have their own grant schemes in various ways. So there's what's called product substitution grants, where people are looking to help people move away from metaldehyde use onto use of ferric phosphate slug pellets. And there are other grants potentially available from them, depending on their local need. So that's the picture as we speak. There will also be later in the year announced a new farming technology set of grants, which are linked to the old countryside productivity type grants, which may well include rainwater harvesting and other things. So keep an eye out again in the farming press and on the .gov website for those. There will be other grants that are also pertinent to people, not only in relation to buffers, but other things.
Okay, that's great. I'm conscious of time, but I think if those that are on the call, if you'll give me the liberty, we will go till 9:05, and then we'll wrap it up. But Nigel, I just wanted to carry on with turn to the question in the chat room about Severn Trent and being proactive, working with farmers. I presume to the STEPS program. And wanting to know what we can do to encourage others, in particular here I mentioned for Yorkshire Water, trying to get other water companies to be more proactive.
Yeah, certainly the STEPS program is their grant scheme. There's also with South Staffordshire and Cambridge Water a spring scheme. Essex and Suffolk Water also have their own. Anglian Water, as I say, talk about product substitution and so on. So other water companies are involved. I only started today in my new role with Catchment Sensitive Farming, so hopefully I can talk Yorkshire Water into being more proactive. They do have two schemes which relate to their own farms and their own tenants. One called Beyond Nature and another one called Next Generation Farming for the people having an opportunity to get into farming. But as I alluded earlier, there is opportunity for us to work in wider areas in future. So what I can do for Mark, who's asked that question, is if he texts me on 07920 750 988, then maybe we can talk about meeting your needs and working together with them, because it will be a partnership. And certainly farmers are very much involved in that, and we welcome that. So thank you for that interest.
Yeah, and I mean, around the subject of, and Harry, I'm going to come back to you here about, you mentioned about waste and less plastic, which is always, we hear about in many other areas of society, reducing our plastic waste. That's an area where some of these incentives and grant schemes can and closed transfer systems can help us reduce waste. So I presume that would fall into the remit of the closed transfer systems as well, reducing waste.
Yeah, absolutely, Phil. Firstly, less foils. All manufacturers, I know Syngenta don't have foils, but other companies do, but they all go. So that's one less bit of plastic. I think having a fully integrated system, so for example, the caps and the cans made out of the same type of plastic means that they can be recycled much more easily. And also, and I think it's something that we have an opportunity as manufacturers now, our colleagues that make and design the cans, that actually can we use different types of plastic or less of it in order to make it easier to recycle. And I know those conversations are ongoing across the industry. And I mean, I'm sure you'll appreciate turning around a big company like Syngenta is like turning around a tanker, but there are works in place in order to make that more achievable. And if it hits these boxes, I think that can only be a good thing.
Excellent. Harry, there is a question in the chat room about the dust cap. I didn't know whether you could type that answer in there.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go round now as we wrap up, and I'm going to turn to Iain Robertson first and say, if we're talking about the reason for this webinar is about best practice, whether you just wanted to re-emphasize your key point about how we can, be better operators or look after the environment we work in. So Iain Robertson, what would you say your top tip is, or top?
Well, for me, the two things are proper planning prevents poor performance, and keeping it simple, having the lines of communication open to the agronomist and the decision makers to make life as simple and as clear for everybody moving forward, so that there is no crossing back and switching around between stuff, so that time is used efficiently and as best possible. When you're rushing around, that's potentially when accidents and mistakes happen. So by planning ahead and taking your time, planning your workload and what you're going to do, can make life a lot simpler and easier for all concerned.
Excellent. While Harry's typing, Iain, I'll turn to Iain Forman now. Iain, what would your sort of take-home message be, or final point?
Well, really, to go back to the operator check sheet and use that, you only need to use it 2 or 3 times a year. It's available from our website, but it is important to protect the environment all of the time. So if we can get some of these faults rectified when they occur out in the field, don't leave them to be dealt with at the time of the test, but make good use of that time when your machine is being tested, and have a chat with the machine examiner, keep up to date with what the requirements are, and the importance of keeping on top of your sprayer all the way through the year.
Excellent. And Nigel, if I was to turn to you and say, what about, I mean, I feel it's a bit unfair as it's your first day, but there's nothing like a challenge. What would be a take-home point for you to this webinar?
I think we can all improve, learn from one another, and hopefully work together for better. And so, that's our hope, that we all are able to crack this problem, which has been a long-standing problem.
Okay, many thanks.
But it's good.
Yeah. No, I think we'll certainly, as the VI, we'll certainly be talking more with you, Nigel, as you get into the job more, and I'm sure we can work together to build on what is a very professional industry, and we'll have to there's going to be certain challenges ahead in the future, and I'm sure up for addressing them. And I'm going to give the final word to you, Harry, as regards. Thanks for answering that question. Many of the solutions are going to come from the industry as well, so it's very, very important to keep the industry engaged in things like the VI and the Pesticide Forum, etc. So your final summing up point? Yeah,
well, I think, look, there's some great pieces of advice all across the industry here, and I think one thing that's for certain is from the Easyconnect perspective, joining 10 or 12 companies together, working together to produce an easier, safer system for growers has got to be a bonus, because these close transfer systems have been around for 20 or 30 years, whereas now we're actually finally implementing something that is good, easy and safe to use. And I would just encourage growers to talk to other operators like Iain and the VI champions across the country to see their experiences of using the tool. And when you see people like me and other Syngenta people out and about, come and talk to us, and we're more than happy to answer your questions about Easyconnect, or even just advice on filling stations. We talked to Syngenta, run the Farm Sprayer Operator of the Year competition in conjunction with the VI, and we get amazing top tips from everyone on all facets of sprayer technology and sprayer usage. So we're happy to help in those circumstances. And I know people like Iain and Phil and Ian Forman and Nigel are all on the same boat as that.
Okay, that's great. So all it leaves me to say is to thank the panelists. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. It's been a very enjoyable as well as informative webinar. Thanks to Neil Evans in the back for almost seamlessly getting everything together and getting us all here. So thank you, Neil. And I hope it just shows as well the importance of the VI and as a coordinating and from an industry's perspective, promoting best practice. Please keep an eye out, and we will promote our next webinars as we go into the winter period. If you've got any suggestions, please do contact us through the VI website. But all it leaves me to say is have a good day. Keep producing the food for the UK, and thank you very much indeed for your time. Have a good day. Cheerio now.